now move to question time, and I call Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Watt. An audit through questions on notice revealed almost 1,000 units of surveillance equipment provided by Chinese government-linked companies, Hikvision and Dahua, are installed across more than 250 Commonwealth sites. I welcome Defence Minister Richard Marles' comments today that they will be removed from his department. Minister, is the government concerned about this national security risk at other departments and agencies?
Minister Watt.
Thanks. Thank you, President. And thank you, Senator Patterson, for the question. I have seen the media coverage regarding this issue in the last couple of days, and what I can advise the chamber is that the Attorney-General has requested advice on whether a government-wide ban is required to address protective security risks. Of course, the Albanese government takes national security seriously, and we will always act in the national interest. You may have seen, Senator Patterson, the Defence Minister, Mr Marles, has made public commentary to the effect that the government is doing an assessment of all the technology for surveillance within the defence state, and where those particular cameras are found, then they're going to be removed. So there is an issue here, and we're going to deal with it. So I think the government has been very clear in taking responsibility for addressing this issue. I can also advise that the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet and its portfolio agencies do not have any installed devices manufactured by the companies concerned. DFAT, Austrade and Tourism Australia retain some legacy Hikvision or Dahua manufactured CCTV systems in non-sensitive areas, and these are not connected to the internet or agency IT networks. Of course, it is worth making the point that these cameras were installed not under the Albanese government but under a coalition federal government. So it is good that Senator Patterson is now taking an interest in this issue, an issue that neither he nor anyone else in the former government saw as worthy of investigation at the time. But unlike the coalition government, this government is taking action, and as I say, the Attorney-General has requested advice on whether a government-wide ban is required to address protective security risks. As Senator Patterson knows, having asked those questions on notice, departments and agencies have provided answers to them.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Patterson, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Minister. When asked last year, the Department of Home Affairs said they did not know whether other government departments and agencies had these devices installed. Will the government now direct Home Affairs to conduct a formal audit of all Australian government sites to determine our exposure to these devices?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister.
Thank you, President. Senator Patterson, I think I've already answered that question by saying that the Attorney-General has requested advice on whether a government-wide ban is required to address protective security risks. So, of course, being government-wide, that does involve every part of this government and every agency, including the ones that you referred to. But again, I ask the question, why is Senator Patterson only asking about these issues now when he's on the opposition benches? Why didn't Senator Patterson or anyone, why didn't Senator Ruston, why didn't Senator Cash, why didn't Senator Payne, why didn't Senator Hume, why didn't Senator Duniam, why didn't Senator Henderson and why didn't Senator Patterson, among others, Senator McKenzie, think that this was an issue important enough when they were actually in government having these cameras installed? That was fine, but now, after the event, it's worthy of asking questions. These are serious matters, I have no doubt about it, and that's exactly why the Albanese government is taking action, unlike the former Morrison, Turnbull, Abbott and whoever else there was government.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Patterson, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. In November last year, two of our closest security partners, the United States and the United Kingdom, announced they were effectively banning the devices from government premises. Will the Australian government follow and direct government departments and agencies beyond defence to remove these devices?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Watt.
Well, again, for the third time, the government, through the Attorney-General, has requested advice on whether a government-wide ban is required to address protective security risks. If that advice says that that is necessary, then I have no doubt that we will take that action. But yet again, for the third time, why were these matters not serious enough for the former government to do something about them when they actually had the opportunity to do so, when these cameras were actually being installed? It's all very well to be wise after the event and ask questions about things that happened when you were in government, but I would suggest that the time to actually do something about it is when you're in government making the decisions to install the cameras, rather than trying to call into question a government which is taking serious action on this, just as we're taking serious action on national security in general.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Grogan.
My question is to the Minister for Women, Senator Gallagher. Can the minister outline how the policies of the Albanese Labor government will assist people, Australian households, to manage the cost of living?
Minister.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Grogan for her question and for her focus on cost of living pressures for Australians, including those from the good state of South Australia, who she represents. Thank you. Very indeed, sitting next to another proud South Australian. Can I begin by acknowledging that the decision by the Reserve Bank this week to raise interest rates will have become as quite unwelcome news to households across Australia. Whether you're a mortgage holder or a renter, news of the interest rate rise, knowingly that it will cause extra stress on household budgets. The government has been working day in and day out since being elected to look at ways to bring sensible and responsible and affordable cost of living relief to Australian households. And whilst we can't control what the Reserve Bank does with respect to interest rates, we can be a government that focuses on those measures designed to make life easier and look at ways being focused to put downward pressure on some of those cost of living increases which we have been seeing. What is in our control are measures to support and subsidise Australians in buying things that are essential. We're supporting everyday Australians through policies like our cheaper medicines, which came into being on the 1st of January. Importantly, our cheaper childcare, which for over 1 million Australian households will make childcare more affordable, and of course reducing the increases on energy bills that those opposite opposed in December last year. Our cheaper childcare reforms were really important reforms, Madam President, about making it more affordable for families, but also that it's good economic policy. In turn, the extra resourcing and investment into childcare supports greater workforce participation, especially by women. But we've also got our fee-free TAFE policy, so we're investing in skills.
Minister, your time has expired. Senator Grogan, first supplementary.
Thank you. I wonder if the minister could give us some further detail on how the cheaper childcare measures could assist with the cost of living.
Minister.
Thank you, President, and yes, I can. And I thank Senator Grogan for the question. The cheaper childcare plan will cut the cost of early childhood education and care for more than 1 million Australian families, 1.26 million Australian families. A plan, of course, that we know the no coalition over there, the opposition opposed during the election. Say no to everything. That's what you're known for. Say no to everything. The no coalition over there. Say no. No to energy bill price relief. Couldn't agree with that. Couldn't agree with $1.5 billion going to ease the prices of those energy increases, could you? No. No. More jobs for Australians? No. More investment in manufacturing? No. No. Childcare? No. Just a big no from you guys. Well, we're getting on with the job, investing in childcare. For families earning $120,000, it will mean a saving of $1,700.
Senator Grogan, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. That was very, very informative. I know that's going to make a significant difference to the people of South Australia and across the country. Could you outline what other plans that the Albanese Labor government has to reduce the cost of living?
Minister.
Thank you. Well, I can assure the Senate that every day that we come to work, we are focused on easing cost of living pressures on Australian households, of making the sensible and responsible policy responses where we can to show spending restraint in the budget so that we don't add to inflation, that we deal with the supply chain issues, that we deal with the visa backlog that we inherited. I don't know. I don't even think you guys were awake in the last year of government when you were in there, because certainly all the work we inherited, you must have been asleep at the table. Or maybe let the former Prime Minister do all the jobs. Remember that? He did have all the jobs. Or you guys go to sleep. I'll not do any of the jobs that I've just taken off you. We inherited the visa backlog, the skill shortages, the lack of investment in TAFE. These are the areas that we are focused on. We're addressing them one by one, cleaning up the mess of a government that had been there way too long.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry, Senator Watt. I refer to the report to the government by the Grattan Institute, Fuelling Budget Repair, How to Reform Fuel Taxes for Business, which recommends reducing the fuel tax credit for off-road use. Does the minister acknowledge the importance of the diesel fuel rebate to Australia's heavy vehicle industry, farmers, fishers, forestry operators and the resources sectors, which are all producing the food, fibre and minerals needed to support the national economy? And can he provide an assurance to the agriculture sector in particular that the government will rule out any changes to the diesel fuel rebate?
Good question.
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Mackenzie. The short answer to your questions is yes and yes. The longer version is that yes, I do recognise the importance of this payment and rebate for farmers. It is an important way for farmers to manage their budgets. And for that reason, I can confirm that this government has no intention whatsoever of getting rid of it. I recognise that the Grattan Institute has made that suggestion, but we have categorically ruled it out, both myself and the Prime Minister. And may I recommend Senator Mackenzie to my Twitter feed, a very worthwhile resource where people interested in agriculture can find all sorts of information. And I direct Senator Mackenzie in particular to a tweet that I did not today, not yesterday, not the day before, but on Monday, in response to David Littleproud, Mr Littleproud's comments on this matter. And my tweet says, quote, "Another day, another baseless scare campaign from David Littleproud. Changes to the fuel tax credit are not on the government's agenda. We're not ending the weekend, we're not ending the backyard barbecue, and we're not ending this either. Poor David." I guess I should probably add on this occasion, poor Senator Mackenzie. The information has been out there in the public domain for 4 days, where I ruled it out. The Prime Minister has ruled it out. I've also done ABC Capricornia, a radio station I recommend you listen to as well, Senator Mackenzie and all of your colleagues. So I have ruled it out repeatedly, but if you haven't caught up with that fact, maybe you're a little bit behind the times. It's not happening. It never was happening. It was a David Littleproud idea, and guess what? Yet again, he's wrong.
And Senator White, I do remind you when you're referring to people in the other place to use their correct titles. Senator Mackenzie, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. It will come to no surprise to Senator Watt that his Twitter feed is not something I wake up and read every single morning. And I too give a huge shout out to the ABC in Capricornia. My supplementary one, I refer to the reliance of Australia's fishing fleet on the fuel tax credit scheme and their vessels to catch. No, well, I'm not sure that was. I had a minute to ask there. I want the fishing industry's fuel credits also
Time. Thank
guaranteed.
you, Senator Mackenzie. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. And in my experience, usually when you're in a hole, you stop digging. I have made it clear now through Twitter, through ABC Capricornia, through other media outlets, through answering a question in the Senate chamber, that touching the diesel fuel rebate is not on this government's agenda. We are not considering it. We are not working on it. And that applies to farmers, to fishers, to foresters, to anyone else who takes advantage of this. That is not on our agenda. And again, this has been a matter of public record for 3 or 4 days. So I'm a little concerned that Senator Mackenzie and her team aren't keeping up to date with what announcements and commitments the government has made and instead choose to perpetuate these scare campaigns day after day. I'll tell you one other thing about fishers and about farmers. They have welcomed the cooperative approach from the Albanese government in dealing with them, and I have lost count of the number of farm groups, fisher groups and other groups who have made the point that they welcome a government that's actually collaborating with them, listening to them and not lecturing them.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. Senator Mackenzie, second supplementary.
Thank you. The viability of many agricultural economies is enhanced by the contribution of the mining industry, which directly employs over 285,000 skilled workers. Given the importance of the resources industries, will the minister provide an assurance that the government will retain the fuel tax credit scheme in its current form for the resources industry?
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Minister.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Well, I'm not the minister representing the Minister for Resources, but I'm happy to refer you to my previous answer to your previous question, the one before that as well, my tweets, my ABC radio interviews and all of my other interviews, where I've said that we are not considering this matter, and as many times as you might like to say so in whatever
Minister
way—
Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you. On relevance, Madam President, the minister, in his previous answer to my first supplementary, talked about
I listened very carefully. I'd ask you to resume
industry.
your seat. You've pointed me to relevance, and the minister is being relevant. Please continue.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. We are not considering any changes to the diesel fuel rebate as it applies to any industry whatsoever, and I'm afraid that this will go down in the big rubbish bin that is overflowing with National Party scare campaigns, along with a $100 lamb roast around signing the methane pledge was going to end the backyard barbecue. We were going to end the weekend. What else? We were going to wipe out Whyalla. I'm pretty sure it's still on the map, Senator Grogan. You were there recently. There must be some more that I've forgotten. The National Party are constantly full of it, and country people have worked them out.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McKim.
Thank you, President. My question's to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Minister, last week the IMF, who it has to be said are one of the chief agents of neoliberalism around the planet, suggested that Labor's Stage 3 tax cuts should be reassessed. Here in Australia, everyone to the left of Malcolm Turnbull thinks that the Stage 3 tax cuts should be ditched. Minister, does your government really believe that Labor's Stage 3 tax cuts are good policy? Do you really believe that $250 billion in tax cuts that overwhelmingly benefit the top end of town is preferable to putting dental and mental health into Medicare, making childcare free and wiping out student debt?
Thank you, Senator McKim. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator McKim for the question and his ongoing interest in this portfolio space. I recognise, and I think we all recognise in this chamber, that there are different views around the Stage 3 tax cuts, but our policy and our position on those tax cuts hasn't changed. Our priority when it comes to tax reform is the tax reform we outlined in the October budget, which is around ensuring multinationals pay their fair share of tax here in Australia. We also acknowledge that those tax cuts aren't scheduled to come in, I think, till 2024, and we are focused on the near-term challenges in the economy, including how we ease cost of living pressures on households. They are the inflation challenge, and dealing with the associated cost of living impacts that it's having is our main focus in terms of the economic portfolio. But you raise a broader question as well around the budget and pressures on the budget. And there is no doubt that the economic and budget vandals that sit opposite us had left the budget in such a terrible state. Well, I'm not going to let you get away. I'm not going to let you get away with this view. I'm not. Zombie measures, terminating measures, the pork barrelling and the failure to deal with the big pressures on the budget that happened on your watch that we have been left to resolve. We need to manage, and we are the fiscal responsible managers of the budget. And people will see, as we go through the detail of what we inherited, just what vandals you were. Looking out and saying we're managing everything while sweeping it all under the carpet, pork barrelling to friends, failing to fund things properly and having them all fall off a funding cliff in June this year. That's the legacy you leave, and that's the challenge that we are dealing with in the budget.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McKim, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, you mentioned inflation in your answer, and the Treasurer said this week, and I quote, "Labor has a plan for inflation." The RBA is forecasting that inflation will be above their target band when the Stage 3 tax cuts come into effect next year. Isn't it the case that the Stage 3 tax cuts are grossly inflationary? Is putting another $9,000 a year into the pockets of billionaires part of your government's plan to address inflation?
Thank you, Senator McKim. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, the Treasury, of course, forecasts in the budget their Treasury forecasts for inflation over the forward estimates, which will include the stage 3 tax cuts when they come into operation. And you can see what the Treasury forecasts there in terms of inflation, and it's forecasting that inflation will track back towards more normal bands over the more normal range over the next 18 months. Senator McKim also said the Treasurer had outlined a plan for inflation, and we do. We do have a plan for inflation. It's a 3-point plan: cost of living relief, where we can sensibly and meaningfully make a difference without adding to inflation, which is our childcare, our relief for energy bills, our investments in cheaper medicines, to deal with the supply chain issues, which is workforce and skills, and to show budget and spending restraint in May. That is the plan that we have and that we are implementing.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McKim.
Thank you, President. Minister, most Australians know that you only supported the stage 3 tax cuts to neutralise the issue to win the election. Isn't it the case that your position now boils down to not doing the right thing because you promised in your own self-interest to do the wrong thing? Minister, how's Labor's political cowardice helping the millions of Australians who are struggling with rents, mortgage rises, the cost of living crisis, and who will get pennies on the dollar at a stage 3 compared to the—
Order. Minister.
There was a lot in that, President. There was a lot, and I give credit to you, Senator McKim, for managing to squash that into 30 seconds. We covered a whole range of issues then. I do not accept the points made, the negative reflections on our motivations around self-interest. We wanted to change the government. We managed to change the government. And we think that is good for the country. We think that is good for the country in the fact that we are now able to implement all of the policies that we took, our positive policies around climate, and dealing with those issues that you've been interested and involved in for some time. But we are in government. We are dealing with the inflation challenge. We're dealing with some significant budget pressures. We've got to focus on households, cost of living, easing cost of living pressures where we can, where it doesn't add to inflation and doesn't make the job of the Reserve Bank harder. This is the job that the Treasurer and I do every day, day in, day out, and will continue to do so.
Minister, your time has expired. Senator Dodson.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Emergency Management, Senator Watt. In my home state of Western Australia, we've seen flooding in the Kimberley and fires down south. Can the Minister please provide an update on what support the Commonwealth is providing to communities impacted during this high-risk weather season?
Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and can I thank Senator Dodson for his question and also his fine leadership in the Kimberley throughout these devastating floods. And I do recognise that there are a number of senators and members across all sides of politics who've played a very important role, and I thank all of them as well. Before directly addressing Senator Dodson's question, I'd also like to just give a quick update on the deployment of Australian personnel to Turkey. Tomorrow it is expected that a deployment of 72 personnel from New South Wales Fire and Rescue, DFAT and the National Emergency Management Agency will depart for Turkey, where they will then be tasked by local authorities in supporting search and rescue efforts. These urban search and rescue personnel have internationally recognised skills, and I'm sure they will provide much-needed support in the ongoing efforts across the impacted communities. I'd like to thank those personnel for this incredible undertaking, and I'm sure I speak for everyone here when I wish them well for a safe return. In the meantime, the Albanese government is continuing to work closely with the Western Australian government to support the ongoing recovery in the Kimberley following the recent devastating flooding. 2 NEMA officers have been deployed to 2 locations in Western Australia to work in the Western Australian Department's offices in Perth and with the local council in Derby, West Kimberley. NEMA is also working closely with the National Indigenous Australians Agency to identify recovery needs at the community level. Of course, there are a large number of First Nations people who've been dramatically affected by these events, and the Albanese government believes it's essential that traditional owners are part of the conversation on how we support the Kimberley communities and to make sure the recovery happens the way those communities want and need. Again, I'd like to thank Senator Dodson for his ongoing engagement with myself, my office and all of those communities around their recovery needs in the Kimberley. I was on the ground with Senator Dodson and the Prime Minister in Fitzroy Crossing in early January, and I've seen the power of work being done. In total, more than $2.5 million in Commonwealth disaster assistance has been provided to around 3,200 people in affected communities in Western Australia today, and there's a range of joint support still available.
The time has expired. Senator Dodson, first supplementary.
Last year, nearly every state and territory in Australia was impacted by natural disasters. Can the minister please outline what this government is doing to ensure communities that have been impacted are getting the support they need?
Minister.
Thanks, President, and thanks again, Senator Dodson. I'm very pleased to say that under the Albanese Labor government, no matter what your postcode, no matter what electorate you live in, if you've been hit by a natural disaster, you will receive support. Since May, after our election, our government has provided $1.6 billion in direct payments to natural disaster-impacted communities across Australia through the various recovery payments available. It is a sobering fact that $1.5 billion of this $1.6 billion has been delivered to residents of the state of New South Wales. We recognise that New South Wales communities have faced devastating and compounding flooding events over the last 12 months, and we recognise that it's our responsibility as the federal government to show up in a crisis and keep showing up to help. What we don't recognise is whether those communities voted Labor, Liberal or National, and that's why, regardless of politics, we've continued to provide disaster funding into the hundreds of millions of dollars to very safe National Party seats because those people need help. That is the right thing to do, and that is exactly what we will keep doing.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Dodson, second supplementary.
Is the minister aware of any examples when government was not ensured communities impacted by natural disasters were delivered the support that they needed?
Minister.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Dodson. Unfortunately, just this week, we have seen that not all governments follow the apolitical approach of the Albanese government in supporting communities impacted by natural disasters. I was appalled to read reports that former New South Wales Deputy Premier and New South Wales Nationals Party leader John Barilaro redirected funding away from certain communities that were devastated by the Black Summer bushfires. And why do you think funding was ripped away from them by the former Nationals leader in New South Wales? For one reason and one reason alone, and that's because they were held in state seats held by Labor members. It seems the rorting disease that was in epidemic proportions under the federal Liberals and Nationals also spread its way to New South Wales. What is it with the Nationals and rorting public funds? Because we know the federal Nationals have lots of form on this. Let's forget about sports rorts for a moment. Let's forget about regional rorts. It even happened with disaster funding as well. Who will ever forget that in the Northern Rivers, federal National seats got funding and Labor seats didn't? That is a disgraceful way to occur, and it will never happen under our government.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering this question has expired. Senator Tyrrell.
Thank you, President.
Senator Tyrrell, please resume your seat. I have Senator Tyrrell on her feet. As I've reminded this place before, the crossbench get limited opportunities for questions, and to continue talking as she stood was rude and disrespectful. Please listen with respectful silence. Senator Tyrrell.
Thank you, President. I appreciate it. My question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Aged Care, Minister Gallagher. Minister, last year this parliament passed the Aged Care Amendment Implementing Care Reform Act 2022. This act primarily responds to recommendations made by the Royal Commission into aged care on nursing. This act will be fully in effect from 1st July 2023. This week it was reported in the Examiner back in Tassie that there was an aged care resident in Tasmania who spent the whole night bleeding. The rostered nurse took unplanned leave and the only nurse available was on call about 2 hours away. Will the legislation we passed last year ensure tragedies like this won't happen again?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Tyrrell for the question and for her focus on health and aged care in her state of Tasmania. I haven't seen that news report, Senator Tyrrell, but I think those stories have been far too common in aged care, which is why we took the policy to the election that we did around implementing nurses 24/7 into aged care facilities and increasing the care minutes. I think the health, on responding to some of the health challenges in aged care, has been very difficult for providers where nurses have not been available. And I know that the aged care minister, in fact I met with her yesterday on aged care matters, has been absolutely focused on making sure that we can, that the nursing 24/7 is implemented, that we are looking at workforce shortages where they are and how we deal with those, and working with providers, because the aim is that people who live in residential aged care have access 24/7 to nursing care, which is something that they haven't had, particularly in small and regional areas. I spent some time working in aged care and visited a number of aged care facilities, and those aged care staff do an incredible job caring for people, often with very complex health conditions. Sometimes residential aged care facilities are actually more like a subacute hospital than an aged care than your traditional thinking of what an aged care facility would be, because of the complexity of the residents who are living there. So my answer to you, Senator Tyrrell, is that is the aim of the policy, to make sure that people's health needs, residents' health needs, are addressed, and we have access to that professional service 24/7.
The time's expired. Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
I hear that and I appreciate that. But the facility that's in question has been assessed by the Commonwealth and has met the aged care quality standards. How can the standards be up to scratch when they allow people to lie in bed for hours bleeding from wounds that nobody treats? This person was actually sent to hospital the next morning when people came on shift. So the situation it wasn't just a little scratch. So we just want things to be right, and we hear that it's a problem that needs to be fixed, but, you know, we're here, we're the grown-ups in the room, which I've heard.
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Tyrrell for the question, and I agree, it wasn't a scratch. And this has been part of the issue, particularly overnight, even on weekends, with residents of aged care deteriorating to the point that they end up acutely unwell when they are transferred to hospital, or if they are able to be transferred there before they decline. That is the aim of the 24/7 nursing requirement. I know the Minister for Aged Care has been working, indeed, even with the Minister for Immigration, on how we deal with some of the significant workforce challenges that are presented. Part of it is dealing with some of the legacy issues we've inherited, including fixing some of the other workforce shortages, which we'll be doing through the aged care wages increase. And any suggestion that the 24/7 registered nurse requirement won't be enforced is false. It will be enforced, and providers are aware of that in their discussions with the Minister for Aged Care.
Your time has expired. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
President. Tasmanian papers and papers around the country are full of horrible cases of neglect. People are coming to our offices in particular. That's who I'm speaking for. The Jackie Lambie Network has been calling for an urgent audit into all aged care homes in Tasmania. Can you help facilitate that?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Tyrrell for the question, and I'll certainly relay that to the Minister for Aged Care. As you know, we have other measures underway to improve the quality of aged care, including the new star ratings for residential aged care to provide older people and their families with transparency on quality. We've got the extension of the Serious Incident Response Scheme to home care, a new code of conduct for approved providers, aged care workers and governing persons from the 1st of December. I'm not saying this is easy and it'll fix some of the quality issues overnight. It won't, but these are important reforms that send a very strong message that Australians expect quality aged care to be provided to elderly Australians, that the government has a role in supporting that. We will be doing that with our investments in the aged care workforce and our investments in 24/7 nursing care, and we'll work with providers to continue to improve it.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McDonald.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for the Environment, Senator Wong. I refer to yesterday's Twitter announcement by Ms Plibersek that she will block Central Queensland Coal's application to operate a coal mine 130 kilometres from Rockhampton. Minister, how many people would have been employed at the mine, and what would its economic impact have been for Queensland and Australia if it had been approved?
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Minister.
Thank you, President, and I thank the senator for the question. And I understand from reports that this is a coal mine that Mr Palmer has some interest in from the media reports. And I understand that yesterday Ms Plibersek, as the relevant minister, made a decision in relation to this mine. The minister is obviously entitled or empowered under the legislation which has been in place for many years. My recollection is there were changes to it made by Mr Senator Hill when he was Environment Minister in a coalition government. The minister is required to decide every project on a case-by-case, as she is required to do by law. I understand from public statements, and I assume there was an appropriate documentation release, that she has not approved the project because the risks to the Great Barrier Reef, freshwater creeks and groundwater are too great.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator McDonald.
Thank you. Relevance. We know the background of the question. I've asked specifically about employment and economic impact on Queensland.
Thank you, Senator McDonald. You also referred to the Twitter feed, I think, of the minister. Minister Wong.
I'm very happy to talk about Queensland jobs, and the Great Barrier Reef contributes approximately $6 billion to the Australian economy, 64,000 jobs,
Wong,
but they're clearly not jobs
Senator
you want to
Wong,
ask about, are they?
Please resume your seat. Senator McDonald.
I appreciate you don't like high-vis jobs, Senator Wong. My question is about
Senator
Senator
McDonald, when you stand, if you have a point of order, please say it's a point of order. That's not a point of order. Thank you. Minister Wong, please continue.
Oh, well, I certainly enjoyed Senator Canavan wearing high-vis around his backyard, that very dangerous backyard, while he's putting up his clothesline. And Senator,
Minister
you talk
Wong,
about high-vis jobs. Well, you made the interjection. I'll respond. I'll respond.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Scarr, I already have Senator McDonald on her feet. I will go to her, and then, if necessary, I will come to you. Order. Order. Senator McDonald.
Point of order is relevance and respecting the chamber in the process of answering the question asked.
Thank you, Senator McDonald. I will remind the minister of your question.
Oh, sorry. Do you want me to sit down?
I have reminded the minister of your question, Senator McDonald. Minister.
Happy to respond to the senator, because I wasn't the one who did that. So if she's going to do that, you're going to get a response. Yeah. Aren't you? You're going to get a response. The minister has obviously considered, Senator McDonald, the minister has obviously considered the impacts on the environment and employment.
Senator McDonald, order. Order. I have a senator on her feet waiting to ask a question. Senator McDonald.
Minister, what is the government's alternative plan and solution to replace all of the lost energy production, the jobs, the direct and indirect investment that would otherwise have been generated across Queensland and the nation if this mine had been approved?
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Minister Wong. Senator Wong, please resume your seat. Order. Senator Watt, I have a senator on his feet. Order. Order across the chamber. Senator Scarr.
President, Senator Watt made a reflection, impugned the motive of Senator McDonald with respect to asking questions. He said, you're still asking questions for Clive. That impugns the motive of the senator. He should withdraw.
Senator Scarr, please resume your seat. Order. 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 Senator Ruston, I've called order at least 3 times and you continue to shout out. That is disrespectful. I did not hear the interjections because there were interjections across the chamber. I'm sure if I ask Senator Watt to reflect on what he said and not repeat the offence, he will withdraw in the interest of the chamber.
I withdraw.
Thank you. Senator, I called the minister to answer your question, Senator McDonald.
I want to talk, I'm very happy to be asked about jobs, and I would make the point that first, in relation to this mine, I was asked about energy first. I'm advised that this was an export-only mine, so obviously there's no energy into our energy grid. Oh. Secondly, I'd also note, in addition to the 64,000 jobs, which we're obviously weighing, I assume, on the minister's mind, I would note also that the government is serious about ensuring that we invest in industry and jobs through our National Reconstruction Fund, an important part of ensuring strong manufacturing jobs, high-vis jobs here in Australia. And isn't it interesting, those who talk about jobs are about to oppose it. That's right. Are about to oppose it. So if you want to come in here, Senator, and talk about Australian jobs, we're very happy to talk about Australian jobs and all the jobs you're voting against.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McDonald, second supplementary.
In all of her time as a minister in the Albanese government, how many coal projects across Australia has Ms Plibersek approved?
Minister Wong.
Well, I am only aware of this decision. I will take on notice what other decisions I am able to that have been made. Obviously, my recollection is that ministers don't discuss what is before a minister until a final decision's been made, but I'm very happy, Senator, to take it on notice.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Babet.
My question is to the Minister representing the Health Minister, Minister Gallagher. Minister, in November 2022, I raised with you the issue of excess mortality as reported by the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Now, the most recent full report from the ABS shows that for the first 9 months of 2022, there were nearly 20,000 excess deaths, which is about 16% more than the baseline average. Now, of those, 8,160 deaths were attributed to COVID-19, so where's the rest from? Now, Minister, can you please confirm if the Department of Health has investigated this large increase in excess mortality, and if they have, can you advise the Senate what is causing this spike in deaths?
Thank you, Senator Babet. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Babet for the question and also for the advance indication that he would be asking a question around excess deaths. I can say that the Department of Health would, as routine, look at the reports that come out through the ABS. As the Senator indicated in his question, the reports that the ABS does into mortality statistics, the reports that they do on the causes of death, and of course the Department of Health would look at those and examine those to see if there are any trends or issues of concern. I think I'm advised that it's important to note that increases in deaths from a range of other causes not related to COVID-19, because there is an indication of excess deaths related to COVID-19, have also been observed in 2022, and examples include deaths due to dementia, including Alzheimer's disease, which were 25.6% above the baseline average in June and 21.8% above the baseline average for the year to June. And while the number of COVID-19 cases and associated deaths has increased in 2022, I think it is important to understand that the proportion of COVID-19 associated deaths relative to the numbers of cases of COVID-19 has decreased overall, which highlights the positive impact of the health measures, of the changes in transmission, the vaccination and the reduced severity of the Omicron variant and subvariants when compared to earlier COVID-19 variants such as Delta.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Babet, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Now, you mentioned some causes of death there, but you didn't mention myocarditis and pericarditis. Now, this is an issue which is now in the mainstream media. Even Karl Stefanovic talked about it on Channel 9 recently. He said he wouldn't take more than 2 jabs because he had concerns relating to heart issues. Now, Minister, is the government confident that none of this is because of the mRNA injection?
Minister.
President, I thank Senator Babet for this supplementary. I would say that COVID-19 as a virus also impacts the health and has those health consequences. So pericarditis, myocarditis is also, if you have a bad case, a severe case of COVID-19, that is a side effect, a consequence of that. And I would also say that the data shows that for those who are unvaccinated, so haven't had a vaccine, primarily an mRNA vaccine, they are much more likely to end up in ICU or passing away. So those who are not vaccinated or not up to date with their vaccination. And for people in my age group, it's 32 times more likely to end up in hospital if you're not vaccinated. So the answer to the question is yes, we are confident. The government and the approving authorities are confident that the mRNA vaccine is safe, and we urge people to be vaccinated.
Senator Babet, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Now, Minister, given that you're so confident—
Order! Order!
Minister, given that you're so confident that mRNA is so safe and is so effective, when is the government going to release the data to support this claim? When are you going to talk to ATAGI and tell them to give us the information? Are you going to do this, Minister?
Thank you, Senator Babet. Minister.
Thank you. And I would say the safety of the vaccine is whilst ATAGI has a role about the provision of the vaccine, who should be provided the dose, the approving authority is the TGA, and they do publish adverse events through quite frequent reporting. I think it's either weekly or monthly reporting of adverse events relating to vaccination status. I would also say that, of course, people are entitled to get advice from their health professional about whether the vaccine is safe for them and take that advice. But I would also urge people, with the 5th dose becoming available, to please remain up to date with your vaccinations. It's not just an individual decision. This is the thing. It's not just about an individual's decision and keeping yourself safe. It's keeping other people safe from this virus, people who aren't able to be as protected as some of us. So it's actually a community responsibility to be vaccinated.
Thank you, Minister. Order across the chamber. Senator Bilyk.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister for Trade and Tourism, Senator Farrell. Minister, the Albanese Labor government finalised a trade agreement with India late last year, which is now benefiting Australian businesses, including in my home state of Tasmania. Can the minister outline some of the opportunities this agreement has created for local businesses and jobs?
Senator Farrell.
Thank you, President, and can I thank Senator Bilyk for her wonderful interest not only in trade but tourism in her wonderful home state of Tasmania, which I'll be visiting tomorrow.
Oh, terrific.
Hopefully with her and some of our other great Tasmanian senators. But look, this is a very important question that she's asked, and the Albanese Labor government is getting on with the job of diversifying our trade in important markets like India. On the 1st of January 2023, the second tariff cut under the Australian-India Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement took effect. And in the month of January, Australian businesses benefited from the tariff cuts on over $2.5 billion worth of exports into— I'll repeat that figure, $2.5 billion worth of exports into India. This means more opportunities for our seafood, our meat, our fruits, our wine and our critical mineral exporters. And it means cheaper products for Australian households like groceries, like fruit, like nuts and clothing. This deal has been a long time coming. former Prime Minister Julia Gillard kicked off the trade negotiations in India over 10 years ago. And under the Anthony Albanese Labor government, we finished the job by bringing an Indian. Yes, we did the job. We did the job that you failed to do or couldn't do. And we finished the job by bringing an Indian trade deal into force. More trade means more and higher-paying jobs for Australian workers.
Thank you, Senator Farrell. Senator Bilyk, first supplementary.
Thank you. Does the minister have any specific examples of businesses that have started to use the provisions under the agreement to grow and expand trade with India?
Thank you, Senator Bilyk. Minister.
Thank you, President. Well, Senator Bilyk, thanks again for that question. As a matter of fact, I do. There are many great examples in the Senator's home state of Tasmania, which I'm looking forward to visiting tomorrow. For example, you'd be welcome, Senator Colbeck would be welcome, anything to restore the damage that you have done. For example, Hobart-based fisheries company Australian Longline, who have benefited from tariff cuts on exports to India, or the Western Australian Geraldton Fishermen's Cooperative, who recently secured an Indian distributor to supply fresh lobsters because of our free trade agreement. Of course, they're getting into China as well. 1 in 4 Australian jobs relate to trade, and our trade diversification agenda is delivering more high-paying jobs to Australians.
Thank you, Senator Farrell. Senator Bilyk, second supplementary.
Thank you very much. The trade agreement is part of the government's plans to diversify trading opportunities. What other actions is the government taking to diversify trading relationships, and how will local businesses benefit? Minister.
Thank you, President, and thank you again, Senator Bilyk, for your question. And you're exactly right about our diversification policies. The Albanese Labor government is getting started on our trade diversification agenda with this important economic partner. Next month, I will travel to India with the Prime Minister and a business delegation to seize the opportunity under our existing free trade deal and advance negotiations on a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement. We're supporting Australian businesses to diversify their trade and deliver secure, high-paying jobs for Australian workers and Tasmanian workers.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Birmingham.
Thank you, President. President, my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations, Senator Watt. Senator Watt, is the current rate of real wages growth positive or negative?
Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. And it is I'm very pleased to be able to advise the chamber that under the Albanese government, wages are increasing at a level we have not seen for a very long time. Now, over a decade, in fact, over the whole decade that the Morrison government was in power, it did not reach the level of wage growth that is occurring in our country. Now, we know that inflation is continuing to have an effect on Australians' cost of living. And that's exactly why we've taken the steps that we have to address cost of living, such as the ones that Senator Gallagher was talking about: cheaper medicines, cheaper childcare, fee-free TAFE places, and, of course, most importantly, the energy price relief that the Albanese government delivered late last year, which was opposed by every single member opposite. So that's what the Albanese government is doing on cost of living. But we recognise that this job is not done, and we recognise that Australians are doing it tough at the moment. And that's why we will continue to take action on cost of living, and that's why we'll continue to take action on wage growth as well. Because let's not forget that unlike the coalition government, this government made a submission to the Fair Work Commission supporting a pay rise for aged care workers. Unlike the former government, this government made a submission supporting a decent increase to the minimum wage. And of course, late last year, this government, against the opposition of the coalition, passed legislation which is designed to get wages moving again by giving
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Birmingham.
President, I raise a point of order on the standing order related to the direct relevance of an answer. and I raise this point of order particularly about the direct relevance. Now, this chamber, early in my career, made a change to standing orders that went from requiring relevancy to requiring direct relevancy. Now, this question could not have been a more narrowly or precisely worded question. It was 11 words long, and it asked the minister very clearly whether the current rate of real wages growth was positive or negative. I accept that he has been broadly relevant to the question, but I contest he is not being directly relevant to the question, and I invite you to draw him to the directly relevant question.
Thank you, Senator Birmingham, and I will draw the minister to the question. Thank you.
I think it's an established fact that wages growth is not keeping up with inflation at the moment. That is not news. That is in every newspaper that you care to read. But that is not something that this government wants to see go on. And as I say, nominal wages are growing at a higher rate than we ever saw under the coalition government, and that's because, unlike the coalition, we didn't have low wages as a deliberate design feature of our economic strategy.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Birmingham, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. On the 3rd of June last year, the Albanese government made a submission to the Fair Work Commission, which the minister has referenced, to the annual wage review that said, and I quote, "The government recommends that the Fair Work Commission ensures that the real wages of Australia's low-paid workers do not go backwards." Minister, will the government make the same recommendation in its submission this year?
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. And Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Birmingham. Of course, I'm not in a position to reveal what will be in this government's submission on the next minimum wage case. But it is the government's policy to continue to make sure that we get wages moving again. As I say, it stands in great contrast to the former government, who had a deliberate design feature of keeping wages low and who never achieved the nominal wage growth that we've managed to achieve just in the last few months that we've been in office.
Absolutely. Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Birmingham, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. Well, during the lead-up to the election, Prime Minister Albanese consistently promised to ensure that the wages of Australians don't go backwards. The now Minister for Employment said the new government does not want to see Australian workers go backwards. Yep. This minister, this question time, has been able to rule in and out budget measures, and yet he won't give any indication as to what the Fair Work Commission submission will say. Minister, isn't it true that Australian workers are going backwards, that you won't promise to stop them from going even further backwards, and just like your promises of lower
Senator
electricity
Birmingham,
prices, you're breaking your promise?
Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Birmingham, for giving me another opportunity to confirm how strongly the Albanese government is committed to getting wages moving again. And that's why we're taking action to ensure that wages are increased by making submissions to the Fair Work Commission that your
Minister
government
Watt,
was never prepared to
please
do.
resume your seat. Order on my left. Order. Despite the minister having quite a resonating loud voice in here, I am struggling to hear. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. I'll take that as a compliment. This government, unlike the former government, this government is taking action to get wages moving again, passing laws to do so, opposed by the Coalition, making submissions to the Fair Work Commission that the Coalition never was prepared to do, and of course taking action on cost of living relief with cheaper medicines, cheaper childcare and energy price relief that was yet again opposed by, guess who, the Coalition.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Payman.
My question is to Senator Wong, the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change Energy. Could the Minister update the Senate on how the Albanese government is working with Australia's biggest emitters to ensure they contribute a fair share towards our climate target while supporting their economic growth?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Thank you to Senator Payman for her question. Last month, this government released the proposed reforms to the safeguard mechanism based on extensive feedback over nearly 6 months of consultation, reforms carefully designed so Australia's heaviest emitters reduce their emissions and help us to meet net zero, your target too, by 2050 commitments. Businesses in this country understand reducing emissions is essential to their long-term competitiveness. Oh, I hear them over there. Here we go. The government's reforms will ensure that all large facilities, new or existing, are required to reduce their emissions. This sends a strong message that we are serious about our net zero commitments and serious about supporting business. These are reforms that will help businesses and regional communities transform their operations with a $600 million package as part of a larger $1.9 billion Powering the Regions Fund. But after a wasted decade in government, what are we going to see from the other side? What are we going to see? We're going to see, yet again, the Leader of the Opposition who wants to oppose our reforms because he wants to rehash tired negative scare campaigns. You know, as one respected commentator noted, Peter Dutton is like a microwaved Tony Abbott, reheating pathetic scare tactics and fuelling internal divisions. You see, the question for those opposite, are you going to look to the future, or do you just say stuck in your own past? Stuck in your own past. There are those on the other side, and I note that Mr Dutton's comments were in response to Senator Birmingham and Senator Bragg, actually urging their colleagues to listen to what the electorate said.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Senator Payman, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Can the minister update the Senate on what has been the response to these critical reforms from business and industry?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Wong.
I thank Senator Payman for the question and the opportunity to inform the Senate, and particularly to remind those opposite who claim to be the party of business just how much support there is from the business community for our changes. The BCA, the AIG, the ACCI and the MCA all see safeguards reforms as essential to long-term policy and investment that has been lacking after a decade of denial and dysfunction on the other side that we are still witnessing. Jennifer Westacott, Chief Executive of the Business Council, said last week, what we need now is just to get on with it. What I think we don't need is major reversals. They don't like hearing this, do they? Their constituency is walking away from you. Andrew McKellar from ACCI, urging Australians, urging the parliament to get on with it and urging for a bipartisan approach.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Payman, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Can the minister update the Senate on the Albanese government's plans to reward industrial facilities that reduce their emissions and when these reforms were first proposed?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. The Safeguard Mechanism crediting amendment bill will enable large industrial facilities to earn credits when they reduce their emissions below their baselines. In other words, you try and ensure that they also contribute to the net zero target, which, by the way, those opposite have signed up to. It's a balanced scheme, effective, equitable, efficient, simple, and reforms that were first proposed by Mr Taylor. Mr Taylor. And were a recommendation of the 2020 expert panel, which your government accepted and consulted on. President, what I'd suggest is those opposite might listen to their leader, who said last year, when you lose elections, it's important to listen and to understand the reasons why you lost. But you can't hear, you don't want to hear, do you?
Order.
And I ask that further questions be placed on notice.